Yo, what's going on, peeps? Back with NFL Power Rankings. We're a fourth of the way through the season. Week 5. Super interesting season so far. A lot of teams we thought we were going to be that were going to be good are struggling. A lot of the power teams we thought were going to be good are good. Some interesting downfalls so far through 4 weeks of some teams. Some super interesting football games. We had a tie this weekend. Obviously, my videos aren't super complex, but I was a little strapped for time, so these ones aren't going to be as intensive in terms of information on the slides, but I'm just going to give you my thoughts and where I see the teams fit into the power rankings after 4 weeks of play heading into week 5. So starting with number 32, the Tennessee Titans taking a step back. They're 0-4. I think I originally had them at number 30. Tennessee's just not a really well coached team, and they're just super breadth of talent. So much so that Cam Ward's really struggling. Going into the season, I thought they had some decent pieces at O line. And I thought with Cam Ward's, mobility and his IQ and his ability to stretch the field a little bit and make some plays with his feet, I thought that would make this offense a little bit better, than it looks on paper, but they're through 4 weeks their offense is essentially stalled out. Defense has some good pieces, but you can only do so much when your team's not scoring points, and you're on the field the whole time. Had some tough games with some good teams, but sadly, this team is very far away. I do like Cam Ward though. I'd like to see them put some pieces around him. I actually think they're going to move off this coaching staff after the season. Just not looking good. Tennessee, number 32. Number 31, up from last place, is the New Orleans Saints. New Orleans Saints get the edge over the Titans solely because even though they're in similar boats, they've played a lot of good teams tough. They have a lot of aging but solid players on defense, particularly in the front seven, but they're just not good enough quarterback, not good enough at the skill positions behind a decent offensive line. They got 3 pretty good offensive linemen from the center position, center guard positions. Like, they have some decent players on both sides of the ball. It's just they're aging. They're not good in specific spots that matter. Obviously, quarterback. They're just shallow at skill position players. Kamara's like their best weapon still. This team for years has been strapped with the things that they've done with the cap. First year head coach, I don't really think he's going to get thrown to the chopping block yet. As a first year head coach, I would assume going into, talks about signing that contract, that a full rebuild is ahead of you. I don't know what their cap situation is going to like next year, but this team's going to be in the market for a blue chip quarterback and, look to rebuild this team that honestly has been perpetual rebuild for a while. Like, I feel like for years here they've been kind of denying it, just like the Oakland Raiders have. Try to patch teams together. Both them and the Raiders should have blown that shit up a long time ago. New Orleans 31. Speaking of Oakland, they're now the Las Vegas Raiders. I keep saying Oakland. Oakland just not looking good through 4 games, 1-3. Couldn't get Ashton Genty going the first 3 weeks, and then he flips around week 4 and scores, 3 touchdowns. I said early for this team, if Pete Carroll gets the right pieces on defense and offense, he's very good at running a specific set of scheme that really, doesn't really optimize. It doesn't need to have a lot of high-end talent to optimize its ability to be effective. The style of defenses he plays, the zone running, short dunk, deep pass style offense he plays. And at the beginning of the season, I thought to myself, oh, okay, they go get Geno Smith, they go get their running back. If they play a little defense, maybe they'll score some points. But, up until week 3, they were just, struggling on both sides of the ball. Interesting to see where Pete Carroll goes. Dude's like fucking 70-something. This team is basically still being rebuilt. Love some of the blue chip players. Obviously, Crosby and Brock Bowers and Genty and stuff. But, they still need their quarterback in the future. They still need their up front seven's horrible. Besides Crosby, they need to still rebuild their own line. So this team's looking about what I thought it would look, but I was hoping for a little bit more out of this team, given what Pete Carroll's been able to do over the years. So we'll see how this team looks after the next couple handful of weeks. Las Vegas 30. Number 29, the New York Jets. Now, the New York Jets, I thought, have played a lot of team stuff, and I do like the skill on both sides of the ball. First year coach, I don't know, how much the Jets are going to hold him to the fire. I mean, it's the Jets. How much can they hold anybody to the fire? They've always just been awful for the most part. But, it hurt them really bad missing Justin Fields. And last night, his first game back, I think he missed 2 games. He was super effective. He got in the end zone. People could say what they want about Justin Fields. Does he lack the overall skill set to be like a high tier quarterback and be super effective in a lot of situations? Sure, but as a pure football player, that guy can move the chains, get in the end zone. There's scenarios, where certain types of throws and holding onto the ball too long where he can just ruin drives. But at the same time, he comes with a lot of upside in terms of just his physical abilities, his physical tools, his toughness. And, it really hurt them, him being hurt out the gate. And they were immediately competitive. I get it against Miami, but they were competitive, as soon as they got Justin Fields back. So, 0-4, I really just think this team, if they keep getting banged up and injured, I mean, they can only just be competitive at best. Jets, 29. We just keep going in a row talking about teams that pop up next. 28, the Miami Dolphins. I thought about putting the Dolphins a tad bit higher because they're in a lot of these games and they still are super explosive on offense, but they lost Tyreek Hill last night to a devastating injury. Dislocated his knee. It was awful. Well, this team's just not good enough on the defensive side of the ball. They're capable of having games where they score a shit ton, but they're also going to give up a shit ton. So, same old with Miami. They locked like a slight, quarterback who doesn't have high level, throwing chops. I mean, he's a really good anticipatory thrower. But now with Tyreek Hill out, you're going to have to rely more on, Tua really optimizing his accuracy and being able to put the ball in tighter windows because it doesn't spread the field out. And between that and him getting hurt, losing Tyreek Hill makes his offense just lose a lot of steam that it could have in certain games. It's just not going to be good for him. Miami 1-3. Carolina Panthers 1-3. They were actually up a little bit. I had them originally, I think, at 25. It's not looking good for Carolina. They've shown little flashes here where Bryce Young looks like he could be the solution. Just not enough. Just not enough around a kid who's slight of frame. He's not going to break tackles and make a lot of big plays. Like, he's got the ability to scamper and get into the open field and do some things and stuff, but his just sheer arm talent with the amount of talent that's here around him, it's just not enough. And I just don't think the coaching staff is fit for this type of rebuild. As much as I liked Bryce Young coming out of college and I like the skill sets and the intangibles, it's just looking like he's clearly a guy that has to have a lot around him to succeed. And Carolina's just, they played tough. They showed flashes. They went out there and they stomped Atlanta, but then they flipped right back around week 4 and just, looked as bad as they normally look against a team that, in my opinion, is, in terms of talent, not that much formidable or as formidable as Atlanta. So, yeah, I think this team's going to clear house, and I wouldn't be surprised if, the new regime decided to draft a quarterback. There's a lot of good ones coming out in this class here. It could be this, like, Josh Rosen, Kyler Murray situation. I like some of the players, that they have. Like, I like Ted McMillan. I like some of their young defenders, but they just haven't been able to put it all together. And this is a make or break season for Canales, I think. So, Carolina 27. Number 26, the Cleveland Browns. So the Cleveland Browns climb a little bit higher, I think by like 4 spots, solely because you're getting enough out of the skill position players on offense, right, with their ability to run the ball and some of their passing options, Flacco being stable for the most part, right, a serviceable quarterback with elite, like, top 3 defense. They've been in games, which is hard to do in today's league with how diverse the game has evolved in terms of how teams attack the field and layer run and pass plays. This defense is just playing fast and aggressive, and they're fucking people up. Like, Cleveland might end the year with possibly the best defense in the league. They went out there and they beat a really good team the other week in the Packers. So this team can play a lot of teams tough. They got Quinshon Judkins back, and he's been running. That dude runs angry, and he's playing well for them. So between their skill position players, the coaching staff, this defense, they're going to be competitive the rest of the year. Just not enough juice overall offensively for them to consistently beat, the more well-rounded teams. But Cleveland, 26. So up a handful of spots, the New York Giants up to 1-3. The Giants decided to start Jackson Dart this past week, and it paid off for them beating the Chargers. Dart looked solid in his debut. Was really what I like about Jackson Dart is the moment's not. You could see clearly the moment's not too big for him. Not scared. I've been trying to tell this to the Giants fans. I don't know. Are we really that bad at backup quarterback in the NFL, or do we not have that much confidence to go out there, especially with a coaching staff whose jobs are on the line, to just play the kid with the live arm and the athleticism who's a fucking dog? Russ is Russ is worth probably like $200 million. Tapping Sierra at home. Like he is like, he just doesn't care. He's just collecting checks, dude. And he's just not good. I don't know why teams keep picking him up. He throws, his deep balls look like punts. It's why he turns the ball over, and then a lot of people get into the controversy, and the guys have been talking about lately about fixed games and shit. I ain't gonna lie, my boy Adam was calling out. It was weird to watch him just keep throwing the ball into the fucking stands at the end of the game when the game's on the line. Makes no sense to me. He's just awful. He's just not good, and he's checked out. He doesn't give a shit. What happens when you play the kid with a dog in him, with a live arm, who's not scared to get in there and mix it up, not scared of the moment, with the crayon eater, big scats back there, just causing fucking CTE for him and himself around them. Like, some of the young players on this team are good. It's a shame that the gentleman on the screen blew his ACL, fortunately, and Malik Neighbors. But there's other guys playing well. The Wandale of the Robinson out there playing well so far through 4 games. Darius Slayton is still a viable option. Not a dude I'd pay fucking almost $40 million contract to, but, he plays a role very well, stretching the field and stuff like that. That's a guy that you can make plays with. I'm interested to see how Jackson Dart plays going forward. This defense played well last week, but it hasn't played well the first 3 weeks. So we got to see if this defense can live up to the money that it spent. It's still got a good front seven. I would like to see this team rally around these young skill position players and get after people on defense. If this team could tighten some defense up with the upside with Jackson Dart fucking slinging the rock and running, and Scattaboo just fighting everyone for first downs. I mean, this team could be a tough out. I mean, they've looked really tough in 2 games. So, Giants 25 for now. Number 24, the Cincinnati Bengals. A lot of people are like, they were leading the division. They're 2-2. That's because we played 2 games off the rip that we should beat even with a backup quarterback, to be honest with you. We're in a stretch where we have to play a bunch of these good teams. Vikings. We just played the Broncos last night and got mollywopped. And then we have, at some point, we play, I think it's back-to-back. We got the Packers in Detroit. But I really think on any given day right now, any team can beat us. We're just not playing good defense. I think we play good defense at times, but as if your defense is on the field all the time, we're not getting any help from the offense right now. Everyone was like, you'll be okay with you because your backup quarterback was 5-3 last year. If this is any indication of how bad it could get when you have one of the best quarterbacks in the league and you lose that guy, what's up, kitty? There's a lot of upside to having as good skills position players as we have. The downside to that is if the guy behind quarterback is not good enough to get them the ball all the time, you really lose so much juice on your team. It's not the same thing as where, if you have an okay defense or an okay offensive line or whatever, and you lose one piece, those things will still all operate together. These guys are all predicated on someone to be able to consistently make plays themselves in order for them to be put in positions to make plays. So it makes the players, no matter how skilled they are, to some degree null and void. And I've seen places that put the Bengals higher than this, but they're 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 ass cheeks. Things are not looking good. We're gonna be in the hole after these next 2 to 3 games. Then we got a winnable stretch after that. But as for now, I really think this team is cooked. Don't be shocked if Zach Taylor's not the head coach next year. Bengals 24. Number 23, the Houston Texans. So the Houston Texans, interesting decision what they decide to do at the end of the year. I've never seen an offensive line get banged up. Their backups are all hurt. And, CJ Stroud just doesn't look, inspired or enthused at all about playing, going through the motions. They managed to salvage a win here recently. This team could end up having the best defense in the league, which, helps them a lot and is going to keep them in games. Luckily for them, they're in a division that's not good. There is still time to possibly claw yourself back and win this division, but it's going to take a Herculean effort by this offense to patch itself up. They're really missing, they paid money on Joe Mixon, and of course Joe Mixon's hurt, just like every Bengal ever. They're out here playing some fucking random dude named Woody Marks getting in the end zone and shit. Like, I don't fucking know. This Houston team's pretty much a team that's a defensive first team, and they're just fledgling to score points. And in this league, if all you do is play defense, you can be competitive at times for drives, a quarter, but eventually your defense gets worn out. You got to be able to score the ball enough. So Houston's in a tough spot, 23. 22, the Dallas Cowboys in a similar boat. So the Dallas Cowboys actually look fantastic on defense. They went out last night and tied the Packers 40-40, which is insane. Again, hearkening back to everyone talking about shit being rigged, but I didn't look at what the spreads were on any of that. I didn't bet on it or anything like that, but I heard whispers of people talking about it, and I think ties are stupid. Like my buddy Adam said, they should do like best out of whatever, fucking 2-point conversions, or I would say they should do a field goal kick out, field goal fucking like shootout or something. I just think ties are just absolutely stupid in any sport. I think ties are horrid. Cowboys can do everything on offense. They can run the ball, whether it's inside, outside, zone run stuff. They can do a lot of trickery. I think this offense is really diverse. They could obviously still pass the ball while even with CeeDee Lamb nursing an injury. This team will be in games because it's very explosive on, offense. Defensively, they're fucking horrible. They're banged up on defense. They traded away their best defender. It's just not looking good for Dallas on the defensive side of the ball. Playing a tough division. Dallas could easily be 2-2, or you can make the argument, if they would have played a little bit better in certain instances, they could have been, 3-1. But luckily for them, Jaden Daniels is nursing injuries. Who knows when he's going to be back? I'm not sure on what that timeline is. But, yeah, Dallas, same old woes, able to score on offense and actually playing better in clutch situations this season so far, which that might be able to help them down the road. Dak, even though they tied, Dak looked fantastic last week against a good defense. So I guess there's a little silver lining for him. Dallas 22. Number 21, the Atlanta Falcons. So I don't know what to think with the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons are so freaking inconsistent in every way possible. I don't think Michael Penix is the solution, and I like Raheem Morris a lot, but I hope that doesn't cost him his job, because there's some really good quarterbacks coming out. Like, I would love to see Lenore Sellers with these skill position players. Then go out and get a guy that could get deep with Lenore Sellers' running ability, Bijan Robinson, the ability to huck that shit deep. I think he would be so fun with these players. Or like a John Mateer would be fun with these players. For this team, it's really coming down to, honestly, consistency and getting enough talent on defense. Then, obviously, if they were more consistent week to week at quarterback, they probably would at least be 3-1. Atlanta's a team that I've been struggling with for a while because I just feel like they're always just horribly run, and like outside of one run, they've never really been all that good. And love the color scheme and shit. That logo is fucking hard. I'd like to see Atlanta and Raheem Morris to get together because I'm a huge fan of Raheem Morris, but right now, just not consistent enough, and like it always seems like every single week there's something they're not doing well in, whether it's special teams, defense, on the ground, through the air. Like, it's just not consistent enough. 21, Atlanta Falcons. Number 20, the Minnesota Vikings. Obviously, the tale for the Minnesota Vikings is, I went on a little bit of a tirade about J.J. McCarthy in my first video for the power rankings. And I was making fun of all these dudes that love college football that are like, just, definitively love to put their stamps on players. And, like, I obviously was wicked deep into like analyzing players and like prospects. I thought about making my own draft guide at one point and just like giving it away like as part of my content. But at the end of the day, my thoughts on JJ McCarthy and the idea of analyzing players still stands. Obviously, they're not getting what they want from the quarterback position. But for you to really know if a dude's going to be good or not at the next level, all you're doing is making an educated guess, and I just think a lot of college football fans just love players, and they're just like, oh, and they either overanalyze a player that shows no signs of being a good pro, or they can't clearly see a guy that looks like he could be a good pro, and they just dismiss him, and then he is, and but regardless of how you slice it, they're not getting what they want out of J.J. McCarthy. I don't know if it's because he's beat up and they've had to play Carson Wentz. I don't know if he's nursing an actual injury. There's times where he shows flashes of, having all the tools, and there's times where he's just god-awful. So, essentially, this team's just going to go as how good the quarterback position is, because I love the talent on both sides of the ball. One of the best offensive lines in the league. One of the best skill position groups in the league, and they have one of the better defenses in the league. But at the end of the day, if you're not getting a guy who can run an offense and make plays at the quarterback position, you're not going to beat the top-tier teams. I do think Minnesota will be – I think Minnesota, with the way things are looking, could be in the hunt at the end of the year, but we'll see. Minnesota 20. Number 19, New England Patriots. So this one's interesting is the New England Patriots are actually getting really, really good quarterback play. If you go look at the numbers and the way the efficiency of Drake May, he's clean like 74% of his passes, and he's like top 10 in big-time throws and all this stuff. But they, at certain times in specific games, particularly on defense, they just haven't been consistent enough and giving up points when they just can't afford to give up points. So England sits here at 2-2. Love the direction this team's going in. You got Vrabel in there. Hopefully, you can patch this defense up. But I love the quarterback. I love the running backs on this team. I think they need to get Travion Henderson, be a little more creative, getting him involved in there. I love some of the cornerstone players they have on defense. And I actually think, again, with Mike Vrabel, give it a year or two, New England's going to be right back in the mix and be a playoff team. So New England, number 19. Number 18, Jacksonville. So a lot of people probably would put Jacksonville higher, but I can't put Jacksonville higher because I have to go out there and see them play more against better teams. They snuck away with one against the 49ers, but the 49ers are super fucking banged up as usual, and they'll continue to be banged up. Jacksonville doing a good job spreading the ball around. Sadly for me, having Brian Thomas Jr. in fantasy, he ain't doing shit, but there's like a lot of other guys stepping up on this team, like Tootin and Parker Washington, and Cole Strange, I think that's his name, their new tight end. They're doing a good job offensively, making teams guess and spreading the pill around. And, they're running the ball well. They're doing just enough to be creative on offense to score enough points. Defensively, I do think they could break a little bit defensively. I'm interested to see what their schedule looks like down the line. And I've always rooted for Jacksonville. Like, I'm sick of seeing the expansion teams just be fucking wallowing and horrible. And Trevor Lawrence just has too much talent to just not make it work at Jacksonville. I mean, if he melts down and if he's horrible the rest of the way, he might be looking for a new job. Jacksonville, number 18, in a weak division. They have an opportunity here. They have an opportunity here to fight for this division. Don't let it slip. Jacksonville, 18. Number 17, the Chicago Bears. So the Bears frustrate me because I actually had the Bears a lot higher. Well, not a lot higher, but they were higher. I want to say I had the Bears at like 14. I don't know. This is like my slides are a lot more watered down than they usually are because I've just been busy trying to run around and do stuff. But Chicago's not played as well as I thought they've played. Could be shaking the rust off early season, like trying to figure things out. But, I love the talent on both sides of this ball. Like, they just have so many skill position players on offense. The offensive line is playing a little bit better than it did last year, I feel. And again, offensively, this team's going to go as well as Caleb Williams goes. If he doesn't make any fucking mistakes, does a good job with his reads, stays patient. I feel like a lot of times he tries to run a little bit too much. I like to see him just stand in the pocket, shrug his shoulders, and just deliver the pill. I mean, he's got a lot around him. Two good receiving tight ends, good backs that can run and receive. He's got friggin' Roma Dunze and DJ Moore. It's like that's more than enough for you to be fucking getting that ball in the end zone more times than not. Defensively, I like some of their acquisitions they made in the offseason, but they got to be a little more stout on defense. Granted, they're in a really tough division, but, I could see this team, I still could see this team possibly sneaking in to the playoffs. They're going to be fighting for a playoff spot at the end of the year, so interested to see how Williams develops, the skills there, all that. Just hopefully he can just be consistent here. Chicago 17. Number 16, the Arizona Cardinals. So they're about where I thought they would be. This team, I like a lot of the talent on both sides of the ball. I like the rookie running back who's stepping in, Trey Benson. He's played well in all of the snaps that they give that guy. He plays really well. Kyler Murray's skilled, but when he gets into serious situations where the game's on the line, he tends to make a lot of boneheaded plays. I don't know if I've ever seen a player with more talent just seem to be not that, he just doesn't seem confident in the game. And I don't know if that's a lack of being prepared. They make jokes saying he's playing Call of Duty when he's not, like, at practice and shit. And all I know is if my job was to make millions and millions of dollars to throw a fucking football around to dudes, I would treat that shit like it's a full-time job. I would put in the work that my coaches thought I need to put in because I would like to preserve that opportunity. I just feel like the Cardinals have enough on offense to be pretty damn good on offense, and I just feel like they haven't taken that leap. Finally, they got Marvin Harrison Jr. going. I just like the skill position players on this team, and I like what Kyler Murray's capable of. He's just not consistent enough. The defense, they got some injuries. They're not what they need to be. They got fucking 400-year-old Calais Campbell still out there fucking making plays, which is hilarious. It's just, this team is explosive. They're just not good at spots that matter, particularly on defense. The offensive line's a little bit shaky, and they're just not consistent enough at quarterback. I like Sean Gannon. I want to say his winning percentage is either 500 or a shade above 500. Interested to see what they decide to do with him because I'm pretty sure he was a defensive coach. This defense isn't where it needs to be. We're definitely going to be looking in the offseason, try to make some more acquisitions. So, Arizona, 16, they'll be fighting for a playoff spot. Washington Commanders. So, I would assume a lot of people have the Commanders a lot higher, but this just essentially comes down to the fact that the Commanders are just not where they need to be in terms of personnel on either side of the ball. I think they need to be better on offensive line. I think that starting Marcus Mariota, obviously, yeah, they might have won a game with Mariota, but it's not if that's your future solution, and if Jaden Daniels ain't going to be there, this team's not good enough defensively for them to stay in games with Mariota. Mariota is going to make mistakes. So essentially, until the Washington Commanders come back, or until Jaden Daniels comes back to the Washington Commanders, this team is just going to be a very competitive football team that lacks the consistent upside. Mariota can make you big plays here and there. But, man, when the game's on the line, you're asking Mariota to make decisions or not get hurt, like real decisions. Like, it's tough to play from behind when Mariota's your quarterback. And people can say what they want. It's at some point you got to be able to overcome your surroundings and just ball out, and he's not able to do it. So, team's just not talented enough to carry a team with their backup quarterback. So, they'll be fighting, scrapping, and clawing, but this team's just a middle-of-the-pack team without Jaden Daniels. Washington 15. So, number 14, the San Francisco 49ers. This is basically predicated on the fact that they just have one of the easiest schedules I've ever seen in the history of football. Like, it's up there. I don't know if I've ever looked at a schedule and just been like, oh, God, they should just win 10 games. This team's hurt. They're banged up. They lost their fucking best player. I don't know if Kittle's hurt again, but I know they lost friggin' Nick Bosa. And this team's just going to continue to just perpetually be hurt. The crazy thing is, even though he's made some turnovers here and there, Brock Purdy still plays well no matter who the fuck is around him, which, if you can't see at this point how good of a quarterback Brock Purdy actually is at quarterbacking, because it seems to be he just plays well. It doesn't always equate to wins, but that dude plays well even if everyone's fucking hurt. That being said, with the schedule being as easy as it is, and with this coaching scheme and Brock Purdy, as long as the team stays healthy enough, I think this team could be a wild card team if they beat the teams they should. Because they got like 6 or 7 more games that, even with a beat up team, they should win those fucking football games based off the scheme and the talent alone that's still left on this team. Not much more I have to say about the 49ers. You know what it is. San Francisco 14. So number 13, probably farther down than a lot of people, because like if you look up any power rankings, or you talk to anyone, everyone, even the Ravens are one of those teams that everyone nut hugs, even if they're not a Ravens fan, but they're just looking fucking awful, and it starts with their defense. When you look at the Ravens defense on paper, you're just like, oh God, this is just a fucking ensemble cast. Their front seven, it's just all names. It's their DBs. They got, fucking Humphreys, and they got friggin' Kyle Hamilton. They got Roquan Smith, all these other dudes. And you look on their offense, they got one of the better offensive lines in the league. They have fucking Derrick Henry. They have arguably the best weapon in the league in Lamar Jackson. The defense has been so bad that in a handful of games where the offense has struggled and turned the ball over, the defensive woes have made it so the offense has gotten frustrated. It's okay to have a turnover here and there if the defense that you paid a lot of money to is playing well. You could afford to have a turnover. When the defense is not playing good, you could just make a few mistakes, and then the other team, no matter how good or bad they are, is right in the game with you. It just looks like both sides of the ball, this team is frustrated. Lamar was throwing his helmet the other night. I expect this team to bounce back, but objectively, if I look at how all these teams are played, I feel pretty justified in putting them here at 13. I actually think that Baltimore at least finds a way to offensively to turn this shit around, and I do think that they're a wild card team, or maybe win the division still. Because I really don't think that the Steelers stay consistent throughout the year. Like, I would be shocked if the Steelers took the division. I still think this is Baltimore's division to win. They're 1-3. I'm interested to see what their next set of games look like. I'd have to go and look, but don't count Baltimore out yet. But for the sake of my power rankings right now, they're just not on the same page. They are not playing well, and Lamar's frustrated. So, Baltimore 13. Pittsburgh Steelers Pittsburgh Steelers here 3-1 at number 12. So Pittsburgh, for the most part, has looked pretty solid. They looked like a pretty solid football team. Aaron Rodgers playing with confidence. Looks like he's having fun out there. He's just like calling for first downs and pointing at people. Shit. J.J. Watt made an appearance a couple games. These past 2 games, he's starting to look like he's turning it on. It's just a well-coached football team, and they're strong on both sides of the football. Struggled, in my opinion, to run it here and there, but they had a huge game with Kenneth Gainwell. And I tell everyone, shout out to my brother-in-law, Kyle. I feel bad in hindsight, because I try to tell everyone how Kenneth Gainwell will steal snaps from any player in a backfield. And I realized Kenneth Gainwell signed with the Steelers, and that he was in the rotation, and he's like listed as their 3rd running back behind Caleb Johnson and Warren, right? But I was like, oh God, Kenneth Gainwell was stealing snaps from Saquon Barkley with the Eagles. The dude's like getting in the end zone and shit. Soon as I see that, I needed another quarterback, and I traded him and Sam Darnold to my brother-in-law for Jared Goff straight up. And Caleb Johnson's barely gotten any snaps this season. So, shout out to Kyle. I feel like I kind of got you on that one. I almost feel bad. But, yeah, Pittsburgh, they're looking solid on both sides of the ball, particularly on defense. And in a division right now, that's up for grabs. I think the Steelers are going to be a tough out the rest of the year with an opportunity here to get it, but I would lean more towards the Ravens bouncing back and winning the division, because the Steelers be fighting for a wild card if Aaron Rodgers keeps playing well. Absolutely. So Pittsburgh, number 12. Number 11, Indianapolis Colts. A lot of people probably put the Colts in their top 10. I got to see them beat some more good teams. They're in a weak division, so some of these games, besides, maybe Jacksonville, or, they're going to be gimme games for them. They should go out and win them. Daniel Jones, this again, I'm not going to get long winded, but it harkens back over to like some nature versus nurture shit, like trying to analyze what guys need shit around them more as opposed to other guys. And as of right now, it's kind of just like Daniel Jones' rookie year where he threw 20 something touchdowns. It's looking like Daniel Jones can be a very effective player on a solid football team with some pieces around him. Went to a great situation with the Colts. Solid offensive line, solid defense. They got good skill position players. Jonathan Taylor, Anadai Mitchell, who I liked last year, who didn't break out, is looking like he's breaking out now as long as he can just hold the ball as he goes for the friggin' end zone. So I do expect if Daniel Jones can keep playing to this level, this team it looks like this team's going to win the division. I don't think Jacksonville's going to win this division against them. I think Indianapolis is playing too well, and I think this is their division to lose. I think they could keep this level of play up. Now, do I think they could beat any top tier teams in the AFC? They would have to play fucking perfect, flawless. I just don't see it. I don't think the ceiling is super high in this team, but still super impressed by the Colts. I had them down at like in the friggin' late 20s, but hey, Colts number 11. Let's see if they can keep the train up. Indiana Jones, baby. Number 10, the Denver Broncos. So a lot of people would probably have them knocked out of the top 10, but this is still one of the best teams in football. Again, the second season quarterback woes, the sophomore slump is striking them. Although, obviously against the Bengals, Bo Nix played well last night, but this team is still a really, really good football team. They can run the ball. Their backs can catch the ball in the backfield. They got a bunch of good skill position players to the air that can just go out there and make plays, and they got a solid, underrated number one in Courtland Sutton, who he's the type of guy that you need, every team needs, where all else fails, you could scheme and you could point to him and you could be like, hey, I need you right now. I need you. He could be like, I got you, and you could toss that shit up to Key. She can go get that shit. That's what separates, at the end of the day, some of the better offenses from the average offenses is you just need that. You need that guy that could go get the ball down the field in specific situations, a guy that could physically dominate people. So I actually think the Broncos are going to eventually, really get consistent, hit a stride, and kind of convert back to what they were doing before. Starting out rocky out the gate 2-2, but it could be a lot worse. They just got to be more consistent on the offensive side of the football. So, like what I see out of Denver so far through 2 games, probably not ideal, but they're only down a few spots from me. I had them originally at 7. So Denver Broncos, future's bright for this football team. A lot of good players. So coincidentally enough, this is one of the things where I was super wrong. I didn't think Seattle would be bad, but I didn't think they'd also be this good. They kind of play a style of game that's like a little bit similar to the Broncos, except for they don't take as many super deep shots down the field. This team is just playing balanced football, accurate football. Jackson Smith-Njigba, Cooper Kupp, dink and dunk, sideline, just really dicing defenses up. 2 really good running backs in Walker and Zach Charbonnet. And then this defense is one of the best in the league. Just love what this team is doing on both sides of the ball. And essentially health is going to be the only thing that's going to hold this back. And can we see if Sam Darnold can continue to play good when it matters? If these running backs go down and keep getting hurt like they always have, it's really what's going to soil this team because they rely on that chip and charge style offense, and not so much charging it, but pound the run, misdirection, and playing a very accurate style of passing. So interested to see where Seattle goes from here, see if they can keep up this momentum, but they're sitting in the top 10, man. Didn't think I'd see it. Seattle number 9. So the Green Bay Packers have had a slight fall from grace. They literally looked like the best team in the NFL week 1. But they're still one of the better teams in the NFL. And again, I think this team truly lacks, as much as I value spreading it around, I really feel like this team truly lacks the true physical number 1 guy at the wide receiver position. Unless you bet on this team, because then all of their other wide receivers that you didn't bet on turned into fucking all-time greats. I bet on Golden to get in the end zone. And all of a sudden, Mims turns into Megatron, and Romeo Dobbs turns into Jerry Rice, and they're just catching touchdowns and shit and running through dudes. I'm like, this is one of those teams you don't want to bet on if you're betting, offensive touchdowns through the air. Good friggin' luck. And it is one of the things that I like is spreading the ball around is very underrated. It's super effective, but it's important to have that one guy. This team can pretty much do everything on the offensive side of the ball besides like they need that consistent number one dude who could beat dudes and press man situations, red zone situations, be more a little consistent tracking, getting the ball down the field. But outside of that, this team can run the ball inside and out. Tucker Kraft is an absolute monster. Maybe Tucker Kraft could be that guy. Maybe they could do a better job dialing Tucker Kraft up because he looks unguardable right now. Defensively, I still think this team, for the most part, should be pretty damn good defensively. They were for the first couple weeks. Fluke game against the Cowboys, I don't expect the defense to give up too many 40 burgers, but Green Bay, great coaching, good young quarterback. I don't know how they keep getting these quarterbacks, but yeah, Green Bay, well, still one of the best teams in the league, sitting at 2-1-1. Kansas City Chiefs, so they're one of the only teams up here that are 2-2, and you know, I really think that, especially because they just got Hollywood Brown back, or no, they got Xavier Worthy back. They're going to be getting, whatever the dude is that keeps getting in trouble for them. I always forget the guy's name. That's going to that's going to bug me now. Every time I go to think of the kid that gets in trouble on their team all the time, I can't think of his name. Well, they also have Juju Smith-Schuster, um, who caught a touchdown, by the way. I needed Hollywood Brown in the end zone, and Juju Smith-Schuster is just out here friggin' Juju Smith-Schuster is just out here crushing it. Friggin', you guys remember Juju Smith-Schuster's first two seasons with remember Juju Smith-Schuster's first two seasons? Who was he with? Was he with the Steelers, where he just looked like an absolute all-world player? And then he had those first two seasons. He was really good, and then he was just not the same player. I know he had a lot of serious injuries and stuff like that, but it's good to see him out catching touchdowns because he always had the talent, just a really tight route runner with really good body control. But yeah, Kansas City's going to be really good on both sides of the ball. Offensive line's looking a lot better where they drafted Simmons, their left tackle. He's just blue chip player. They're going to be able to run the ball with their dual threats at running back. Travis Kelce looks a lot better than he did last year. Still is not obviously as fast as he once was and stuff, getting out his cuts. Dude's like 36, 37 years old. But it looks a lot better, a lot healthier than he did last year. And Patrick Mahomes is playing well. So between the defense and what this quarterback and coach can do with, most of the time, no matter who's out there on the field, Kansas City's going to be right back in the mix. And I think they're going to be in the mix for their division still. So Kansas City, number 7. Number 6, the Los Angeles Chargers at 3-1. So the Chargers are super fun to watch. They got a lot of good young skill position players. Quentin Johnson just on pace for like almost 2 G bars and like 17 touchdowns. And a lot of people worried about his speed, but wide receiver is one of those positions where if you take different guys that have different skill sets, you can mix and match them and do a lot of different things. And I think they have a perfect blend at their wide receiver position that's just really the ideal blend that you want. You got the guy in Lam McConkey who can run routes deep down the field. It is just great at tracking the ball, going and get the ball. You have Quentin Johnson, who's just fantastic with the ball after the catch, contested catches. Not the fastest guy, but is explosive in terms of going up and getting the ball. And then Omarion Hampton is just a beast on the ground. I just really like the level of size, speed, and explosiveness he gets that you get with him. I don't think it really matters if their backup running backs are down. This is a guy that you could just, bell cow back, give him the ball. He can run inside, outside, protect the ball. He can catch the ball a little bit. And then obviously you got Keenan Allen in the slot, who just, even at his age, the route running is about not just about having the agility and the quickness to do it. It's about understanding defenses. And he's one of those guys that's going to find hole in zones, run men off, and just friggin' get the ball. Like, he keeps getting the end zone. I want to say he's like 34, 35 years old now. They just got weapons all over the place. And then defensively, they're going to be a top 10 defensive team. They're just a really well-coached team. And Justin Herbert, just looking like a possible MVP this year. Always had all the tools, just didn't have the right stuff around them, and now they're looking like a well-rounded football team. Love to see it. Los Angeles Chargers, number 6. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, listen, if you don't like Baker Mayfield, you can just get the fuck out, okay? Because Baker Mayfield's an animal. The Bucs are one of those teams that are interesting to me because I do like some of the I love all their skill position players, but I do think that their offensive line could be better, and I actually do think personnel-wise their defense could be a lot better. I think that they're so explosive and tough and well coached on offense that they're always in games. Like, Baker and these dudes can roll down the field and just run through you, throw over the top of you, attack the middle of the field. This is just a super fun team to watch. And it's just fun to watch Baker Mayfield have success and lead all these guys. I couldn't believe the Browns got rid of him. I thought that was crazy because there was nothing going on with him with Cleveland that was indicative of him getting rid of. But, whatever. Another man's trash is another man's treasure. Baker Mayfield out here just calling the shots, flaking and perpetrating, throwing blocks and shit. This is a fun team. I think this team's going to be in the mix to possibly go to the NFC Championship this year, depending on how it goes. They'll be up there battling with the Packers and the Eagles and, the Lions for that spot, Chargers. I think this is one of the 5 teams that could possibly, make it to the NFC Championship here. So Tampa Bay, number 5. Number 4, the Los Angeles Rams. Like I said, coming into the season, I had the Rams like in the high teens. I want to say they were like 12 is where I had them. For me, that putting them there was a projection, and I was not wrong about that projection. I was projecting how good their defense would be. Their front 7, particularly their front 3 and 4, are just absolutely nasty. Whether it's in the run game or, attacking quarterbacks, they're just beasts up front. It allows their linebackers to run free, although I do think they can get better at that position. But it's a lot easier to play that position when you're able to just run around free and make plays on people. The secondary lacks a little bit of size and athleticism, but it's a good little cohesive unit that's playing really, really well. This defense is a blast to watch. Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, they're just freaking monsters. And then obviously, there was worries about Matt Stafford coming the season because he has back injuries, but whenever that dude's upright and healthy, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the whole entire league. Puka Nacua, a lot of people think he could possibly be the best wide receiver in the league. Devontae Adams is showing no signs of really slowing down in terms of his effectiveness and his production. And then they got a solid running game when they decide to use it, but a lot of times use their backs in the passing down, so this just offense is super effective. They can attack you from a lot of different angles. And then Sean McVay is one of the best coaches in the game. So, this is a team that's going to be battling here at the end too. Watch out for them to be a spicy underdog team when the playoffs come. Los Angeles, number 4. Number 3, the Buffalo Bills. So a lot of people will probably be vexed that I have the Buffalo Bills at number 3 because some people think that they're number 2 or number 1. I love that photo, by the way. I say it every time. But for me, the reason why Buffalo is number 3 and not 2 and not number 1 is because they're just a little bit too leaky defense for me. And they, a lot of times, don't put the nail in the coffin offensively. They sometimes leave drives on the table that they shouldn't. And I don't think they're creative enough on offense, particularly with Josh Allen. I'd like to see them find more ways to get Josh Allen out and about and, making plays laterally with his feet and throwing the ball, which he does. But I just think a lot of times their offense is a little bit predictable, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that no one's truly stepped up and been that physical number 1, just like the Ravens, just like the Packers. This team is lacking the true physical number 1 guy at wide receiver. Khalil Shakir fills up the stat sheet, but there are certain situations where he's not as effective. Could Keon Coleman be the guy? He shows flashes. Keon Coleman shows flashes, but he's got to be a little more consistent, and Josh Allen's got to be able to trust him. Because sometimes that it's truly the old toss it up to Quiche. That's a real thing, but the quarterback's got to trust you to go get that shit. He's got to make an accurate pass and put it where you can get it, and you got to go get that shit. So I think it's the only thing that's holding this team back is having that. Defense, a little bit leaky. Some of their spots on their defense a little bit old. They're still playing Tre'Davious White out there. Who knows? Matt Milano, you never know when he's going to go down. Solid defense, but still a little leaky at times. And because of that, on days where Buffalo is not perfect on offense or playing near perfect, because you never play totally perfect, this team can be in games. They've had a couple close games this season they shouldn't have. So, Buffalo, number 3. Number 2, the Detroit Lions. So I think it's quite possible that with some more data that Detroit could possibly be the best team in the league. They had a setback and they dropped a game, but, week 1 to the Packers, but that's another good football team. It's week 1. Detroit's defense looks like it's finally fully healthy. They got guys flying all over the ball, dudes that can hit, dudes that can cover. They play with speed, intellect, and just, having all their defenders healthy. I mean, this defense is just a totally different beast. The pass rush is just undeniable. And then offensively, this team can literally do whatever they want to people. They can throw the ball deep. Jared Goff is one of the best short and intermediate anticipatory throwers in the league, plays with accuracy, looks routes off and just delivers the ball to people. His IQ for reading defenses and just delivering a good, accurate, catchable ball is some of the best in the league. And then obviously they could just punish you with a run game. They have one of the best offensive lines in the league. They have two-headed monster and friggin' Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. There's just nothing this team can't do to you on all sides of the ball. And I actually think that this team is probably the best team in the league right now in terms of their ability to have explosive plays. I think their upside for explosive plays and what they could actually do to you in all areas of the field, offensively and defensively, are the best in the league. But their problem is, and the reason why they're not number one, Detroit is not number one, is because they just don't do it as consistently enough as the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the Philadelphia Eagles are still number one. Obviously, they're sitting here at 4-0, but it's not just because they're sitting here at 4-0. It's because, a lot of people hate on the coaching staff, but I do think this team is well coached, and they're just really good in all the areas that matter. My only gripe with this team is they are more consistent than the Lions. But what's weird is they've had weird consistent patches game to game, where like if you look at the Rams, they looked like a shell of their former selves and just let the Rams run roughshod on them in the fourth quarter, then they come back and somehow win. And they've had games like that or vice versa. But this team is just really good at the basic fundamentals of football. They play good enough on defense, they manage the clock well enough, and they run the ball well enough between the quarterback and obviously, the best running back in the league, arguably, Saquon Barkley. And when it comes time for them to actually have to throw, they still have two of the best wide receivers in the league. And I talk about situational football. This team goes the way the run offense goes. But when they do get themselves in tight situations, you still have that dude, Antonio Brown. Yeah, or not Antonio Brown. Oh, Jesus Christ. You're still able to throw the ball to Brown, who can win in any situation. Brown can beat you down the field. Brown can beat you across the field. Brown can catch a screen underneath and break multiple tackles. He is one of the handful of the guys in the league that it does not matter what situation you're in, Brown can go win the football. And Smith is actually capable of that at times too, although his game is more predicated on the route running, but when you need him to get open, he can go get open, and it makes it a lot easier on the quarterback when you have those dudes that can do that. And one of the other X factors is, no matter what's going on in the game, Jalen Hurts does not get rattled. Great leader with a lot of good players around him. This team's still on paper one of the best teams in the league. And, until I see, unless I see, if they stay undefeated for a while, unless I see Detroit, go on a little run, being 3-1 now, but if they go on a little run and just, I don't know if they play each other or not, but I would love to see mid-season Detroit and the Eagles play each other. I have to go look at the schedule, but as of right now, and I think they haven't lost a game in like what? It's like 20 something games. That's all everyone talks about or whatever. But, this team is still the best team in the league, still plays within the confines of what their game plan is better than any other team, and they stick to it and they don't fall apart. They don't get rattled. And that's what separates, one of the things that could separate a high level team from other high level teams. They lost a little bit of defense. Still a little worried about that. But, yeah, Philadelphia. Jalen Hurts and the boys still 4-0. Fun 4 weeks so far. Looking forward to the matchups in week 5. Please let me know how you guys feel about my power rankings. I apologize. I'm running around doing a lot of different things today. So this is kind of, I had the slides done, but not as much as I would like to go in depth by each team, and I kind of had to piecemeal it together. But I wanted to get something out to you guys because I did not want to flake out on doing these quarterly. I promise you guys I would do them, and I will see you guys back in the middle of the season. Later.